Hello everyone, the Dwarf here with another review. You can call me Alex if you really want to. But I saw X-Men, and I want to give my thoughts on it. So, this is X-Men Days of Future Past, of course, I'm talking about. So if you're watching in the year 2016 when Apocalypse and all that stuff is out, good for you. But, okay, so I'm going to be talking about Days of Future Past, and it is going to get a little spoiler-filled towards the end. But at least I will warn you when I start to talk about the spoilers. But first I'm going to give sort of the basic plot line, if that makes any sense. Basic plot line is Wolverine, there are Wolverine and the other X-Men in the future, and it's year 2023, and we can tell this because 50 years back is 1773. 1973 is when they go 50 years back. So it's Wolverine, Kitty Pryde, Bobby's there, Iceman, Storm is even there, Ian McKellen as Magneto, and Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier. And they're in the future, and the Sentinels are killing all the X-Men. And basically, Wolverine is sent back in time by Kitty Pryde, and the reason that he's sent back in time was actually pretty well explained, and it wasn't just, oh, well, we want to give Wolverine some more time. It was, well, it's really the only fathomable explanation. Okay. I'm gonna stop now. But it was the really only explanation that could work, because if Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, or if, Ian McKellen as Magneto, if one of them goes into the past, they're probably going to not survive the time continuum. But Wolverine, because he has the adamantium, he can survive it. And so, he's sent back in time to 1973 to stop Mystique from killing Trask, basically, and that was the event that sent everyone sort of on a loop. That was the event that sort of started after Trask dies. That sort of sends the U.S. government to start building the Sentinels, which kill the mutants. So basically, that's what he's there to reverse, and he's also there to talk to Magneto because he needs. I mean, not Magneto, Charles. He's there to. Because Charles is actually a very different man at this time. He's not, the leader of the X-Men. He's sort of... This is also, I believe, 10 years after First Class? Yeah, it's 10 years after First Class. So, he sort of doesn't have his legs, of course. I mean, well, he didn't have his legs in First Class, but now he has his legs back because he traded his powers away for his legs. And, I believe at some point, Beast tries to give him the formula for him to have his powers back. And that sort of works, but then again, he has to go back in the wheelchair. So yeah, they have to stop Mystique from killing Trask. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting about this film, in terms of dialogue, is when Beast says to Professor X, I guess he is Professor X in this film, but it is the past Charles, and he says to him, time is an irreversible continuum. So, you can stop Mystique from killing Trask now, but that won't stop the Sentinels from being born at some point. You're just putting off the problem, basically. And that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out into the next film, Apocalypse, because, that's going to take place in the 80s, so we'll see what happens there. So, we'll get to Apocalypse later, actually. But basically, in this film, Wolverine goes back in time, and he has to basically recruit all the old X-Men, I guess, but they're the X-Men from First Class. So this is Charles Xavier, played by James McAvoy. Then there's also Beast. I actually don't know. I think it's Nicholas Hoult is who he's played by, if I'm correct. And then there's also Eric Lehnsherr, or Magneto, and he's played by Michael Fassbender. And God, I love Michael Fassbender in this movie. He is amazing as Magneto, and I love him so much in this movie. And it's not like X-Men First Class where they were all together. Magneto and Charles at this point have sort of gone off on their different paths, so they sort of really need to work together. One of the best scenes in this movie is when they have to break Magneto out of the Pentagon prison. That scene was the best scene in this movie. And it might be the best scene in any X-Men movie. And we're talking about Also, we're including, the scene where Nightcrawler breaks into the White House in X-Men 2. That was classic. But this scene tops it. And this, what I'm talking about when Quicksilver, I had very low expectations for him in this film, but he was amazing. We're talking about when Quicksilver saves Magneto from the prison and he escapes. And the scene like where he breaks the glass with like his hands just because they're going so fast was really well done. The best scene was the slow motion scene where he slows down time and he puts like bullets in certain places instead of like hitting Charles or Eric, and that was really cool. He was really my surprise of this film because you see any of the promotional material for him, he looks terrible. I'm like, that's not Quicksilver. That is, I don't even know what that is. I don't know how to classify him as. It's definitely not Quicksilver though, and I was proven wrong. That is embodiment of Quicksilver. Maybe it doesn't look like him necessarily, but it embodied all of the character traits that I expected in Quicksilver. And I gotta say, Avengers 2, you're gonna have a hard time topping that Quicksilver, because I love that Quicksilver, and I think a lot of people were very surprised by him, just in general, on how he performed. But that's basically the beginning of the film. They're sort of breaking him out of prison, and they have to stop Mystique from killing Trask. As for how I felt about Mystique, I like Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique. Don't get me wrong. But, I don't know. I felt that her switching over to the good side at the end, I mean, she never really fully switched over, but we can only assume that's kind of the direction that that's going to go. At least that's what I think. And I felt that that was a little bit forced, but we'll see again. It's not 100% confirmed that they're going to go in that direction. So, we'll see. I liked overall her performance in the film. It was not bad, trust me. It was very good in my opinion. So, what other performances were there? Ian McKellen as Magneto was great in the future. Even though he didn't have that many lines, he was still pretty cool. Charles Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart in the future, was pretty cool. And the scene that I really liked is when, Charles sort of goes into the future to talk to future Charles, and you hear this conversation between Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Oh, God. James McAvoy. When you get too many people playing the same / a different person, it's so hard to keep track of these actors' names if they're not named Hugh Jackman. And we'll get to him a little later, too. But overall, how I felt about the film, I thought it was very good. It was very, very solid, and it was probably my favorite X-Men film to date. And what my favorite X-Men film used to be was X-Men 2, and I'm like, they're never going to top that. And I thought this came out and topped it. Hugh Jackman is very good as the Wolverine. I love him as the Wolverine. He should stay forever, even though I don't even know how old he is now. But he should stay forever, is basically what I'm saying. And the one thing that I liked about this film is that we got the Wolverine last year, and one of the things that I didn't like about the film is that there weren't a ton of layers to the Wolverine in that movie, although I really did like it. One of my complaints was that we didn't get a ton of layers to the Wolverine character, and there are a ton of layers, to be honest, to the character of Wolverine. He's not just, what I would call... He's not just this angry guy who slashes his claws, that he's not always that kind of guy. He has layers to him, and that's what I really liked in this film. And in the Wolverine, he was, for the most part, I would say, just the angry guy. And he was like, I'm Logan. That's kind of what he was in Wolverine. And that was cool, but it was cooler to see more depth to him in this film, in my opinion. So, overall, I'm going to get to the spoilers and that stuff really soon, but overall, what I would have to sum up on Days of Future Past, I gotta give it an A+. It's a really good film. I think that even if you're not a huge X-Men fan, that you can watch some of the original movies and then go to see this one, and it's really cool. Because I know a lot of my friends who weren't into X-Men as much at first, who, were very interested by the prospect of this film and went back and watched, X-Men 1 and X-Men 2. Let's try to forget about 3, but we'll talk about that a little later. But, they got into some of the other X-Men films, and then, they saw Days of Future Past, and now they're pretty big X-Men fans. So I think this is a very good step for the franchise, because it recruited actually some new fans who maybe were a little skeptical at first. But But yeah, I'm gonna go with an A+. Very strong performances. Now, it is my favorite film of the year, by far. And I'm talking, I loved Captain America 2. I loved those other films, but this, for me, takes the cake. It just stole it. And I was disappointed, maybe as some of you know, by Spider-Man 2, or Amazing Spider-Man 2. I liked it, but it was nowhere near the level of Days of Future Past. I gotta give it an A+. And so let's talk about spoilers. I saved this part for the end of the review, so if you've already seen the rating, you can go now. You can go, fresh out the door. But I'm going to talk about some spoilers. And so some of the spoilers that I want to talk about. So we really see, I guess, basically to summarize the spoilers, a lot of the original films that were considered canon, so we're talking X-Men 3, even X-Men Origins Wolverine, I guess that was canon. Not canon anymore. I really don't think... I think the only thing that's canon would be X-Men First Class. Because remember, after 1973, the whole timeline was changed. So basically, the only film at this point that really stands as canon is X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past. Because all the events of the other films were pretty much changed. So that is one of the spoilers. And the other spoilers, of course, a lot of the old characters coming back. And Wolverine wakes up back in his body in 2023. And he sees Scott as Cyclops is back because he never died. Because all the last 50 years... I can't snap tonight, but all the last 50 years, gone. Alright, he was never killed by Jean Grey. Professor X is fine. All of these characters, Jean Grey, so... all of these characters are back at the end of the film because Logan reversed the last 50 years. And that was a pretty big spoiler, mostly because I had it spoiled for me. So that kind of sucked. But I think that you're going to have a lot of fun with this film. I don't think there's any other spoilers I really need to talk about. Other than, there aren't really any more spoilers I need to talk about. Those are the two major ones, I think, of how the timeline is pretty much... so complicated now to wrap your head around, but basically, watch X-Men First Class, watch this film. That's really all you need to do now, because 1, 2, 3, Wolverine, and Origins Wolverine don't really count. So, yeah, I thought this film was very good, and, yeah, stay tuned to my channel. I'm going to be uploading some more reviews of TV and movies in the future, and comment down below. What do you think of X-Men Days of Future Past? I want to hear it too. I know it's been out. I want to hear your opinion too. I know it's been out for almost, what has it been, 2 weeks, but I wanted to review it now, so it's perfect time, because I know everyone's kind of, I don't want it to be crowded, but, everyone's seen the film by this point, pretty much, so, yeah. So, I hope you loved X-Men Days of Future Past like I did, and subscribe to The Dwarf, or I don't know if you want to call me that. And, yeah, I'll post some more TV movie reviews in the future. Comment down below what other TV shows and movies do you want me to review, because this channel's sort of just starting out, so comment down below, and, have a good night.